Ribbit. It's
Yes,
Thursday.
it's okay. Every day is Burpee Monday, you know? So we're back in the lab, Garrett and Austin, just talking about life. I came up with this podcast episode in my head because I was like a random walk down Wall Street, as a random walk down life, right? And I was like, we have all these plans and we think we know the best decisions to make. And that might be the case a lot of times, but then there's a lot of times where you have this goal, you have this plan, you want to go somewhere, and then you kind of veer off, and it's just because that's the way life is, or you end up somewhere else, and that's okay, and it might even be better, or just you have to look at the situation as like, this is where I need to be. Garrett, anything to add to that intro?
Yeah. Well, you also had a good idea that we should talk to each other's loved ones. So I called up your parents and your younger brother to get some dirt on you, some fun stories, just kind of like who was Austin when he was younger, like why is he the way that he is, kind of backwards looking to explain where you're at now. And I think that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like where we might end up, wrapping on this is like there's some stuff in our past that is pretty instructive to like where we are now and how we got to where we got, but also like not everything plays out the way that you expect it to, and sometimes that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of dirt, um, someone's younger sister said there was a fun story about mud after school one day, and playing around in some mud at a baseball field. Do you remember that story, Garrett?
Uh, so if I remember this is my younger sister Candace. Mud at a baseball field. This would be Sunnyside Elementary. There were two kind of big dirt kind of kickball baseball fields in this massive field in the back of our elementary school, and so we would walk from elementary school across the grass field, and then maybe like another quarter mile to our house growing up. And there was one that had rained pretty hard, and there was a bunch of mud near there. Is that what she was talking about?
Mm-hmm. Do you
Yeah,
remember what happened? I can refresh your
yeah.
memory
You
from
refresh
what
my
came.
memory.
Okay,
Tell me, see, jog my memory.
dude, Garrett is a very persuasive person, especially growing up. Also, we haven't going to talk about how sharks are fish, okay? Um, at some point, she brought up some memories. Anyways, so basically, she said it rained a lot, and Garrett, you were walking Candace home because that was your job, as the older brother, and one day. It rained a whole bunch, and you and your friend, I can't remember who it was, I can't remember
Maybe
his
in
name,
Jordan.
probably the Jordan. We're like, you know what? We should like run and slide and see how far we can slide and get really, really muddy. But when you got home, your mom was like, you didn't know how your mom was going to react. And Candace said that your mom was like, what the heck? Why are you guys so muddy? And then Garrett came up with this story that when you guys were trying to cross some path, all your clothes and shoes and stuff got muddy. So your mom wrote a letter because Garrett was so convincing
Yeah.
that the school needed to fix the walkway so that she didn't have to buy new shoes all the time when it rained. And now the school paid for a new walkway.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it is true that the puddle that I'm talking about was in between
Was
the
there?
field and
That
kind
was
of like
not a
this.
lie.
That's not a lie. I think a lot of creative retelling of history there. Yeah, I was. I don't know, that is something that I think a lot of kids go through is like you know trying
It's
to see what
okay.
they can get
It's
away with, or
okay.
just
Yeah.
telling stories and stuff.
Yeah.
Creative retellings
Mm-hmm.
of the past, but also like when you think you're right, like being you know hard headed in it. I mean, I talked to Jordan. He said that when you were growing up, like you were right all the time
In my head, yeah.
in your head, but then when you were not right,
There
you
was
still stuck
times.
to your guns.
For sure. Um, so yes, and specifically, there was a time. This is recent. This is probably like 4 or 5 years ago, and so we weren't so young. But like, I am the type of person. I play word jujitsu sometimes, and so words matter to me. Um, and for better or for worse, right? Like words do matter. What you say matters. And so in this moment, we were training some kids, and we were training them how to do a fast L drill because they were going to a combine. And I'm out there, it's hot as crap out there, sweating, and I'm just kind of going. And I was like, fast is smooth, smooth is fast, or something like that, right? And Jordan was like, and I looked at Jordan, or he said, no, 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 that's not how you say it. And I was like, be quiet, I'm talking.
Younger brother, just get out of here.
Yes, like because he's out there and he's the head coach, and I'm just like trying to like teach this drill, and he was like, okay, all right, whatever. And then we got in the car and we were going back to our 1-bedroom apartment, and he was like, hey, just so you know, you were wrong about that. And I was like, no, I wasn't. And he goes, yeah, you were. The saying is, and he looked it up on his phone. He was like, the saying is, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. And I was like, all right, yeah, you knew what I was talking about.
Well, that sounds like a pretty mild version of this. Jordan tells me that when you guys got back, you were yelling so loud that somebody called the cops on you.
Well, that's a different one. That's a different one.
Well, hey, I must have pieced these two things together, but
yes,
that tends to happen when you're growing up in close proximity. You and Jordan were roommates growing up, young kids.
We shared a room till we.
He said that you could, that the line down the middle was like a nuclear fallout zone on his half of the room, and your half of the room was just impeccable, is the way he describes it.
Sammy ready, as they say.
Yeah, you were ready for the Air Force Academy.
So it was, and the reason why I drew a line down the middle is because of that reason, is because Jordan was very much laissez-faire when it came to letting his side just do whatever. And I was like, dude, like, don't touch my stuff. Like, and because we did share up until we were like 13, 14 years old.
Yeah.
So I was very...
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, if Jordan's like laissez-faire, then you're locked in. Like, you've been locked in since a young age. I know I talked to your parents. They talked about like your competitive mindset. One of the stories that came up, I don't know if you remember
competitive mindset. You just wait yourself, sir.
So, competitive mindset. Austin is 4 or 5 years old. This is back when your dad was head coach at Lee County High School. Okay, so there's like an event in the summer. There's like a race that you were going to compete in. Do you remember this story? You're 4 or 5 years old, okay? So whether your parents describe it, is they kind of been talking about this race. And so it was like some distance, kids your age, 4 or 5 years old. And all week long, little Austin was saying, I'm going to win. I'm going to win the race. Like, you just kind of like, we're always talking about it. And then like on the way over to the race, you're sitting in the car, kind of just like locking in. I hope I win. I hope I win. I hope I win. I hope I win. And then there's a picture that your mom, she said she was going to send it to me, but I think either she couldn't find it or didn't have time. But like, there's a picture of the starting line. And so imagine a bunch of 4-year-olds lined up. They're all just kind of standing there in a gaggle. And then one kid is like in the runner's position, like looking down the raceway, and it's Austin. Austin's like so locked in. And you finished, won the race, and what your parents remember you saying to them was, I knew I was going to win. I knew I was going to win. Where does that come from, that like, the mindset?
Dude, I don't know, man. Like, I think growing up, obviously, both my parents were in athletics. My dad was a head football coach in high school for 30 something years, right? For almost maybe 42 or 45 years, something crazy. So we were always around athletics. And I have an older brother who's 3.5 years older than me. And then I have an older sister who's like 5.5 years older than me. And we just grew up in a very athletic family. And so I think I was just always around athletics, but also I felt like maybe I had to like push myself to want to be just as good as my older brother, but he was a little too much. I say that, but he was so much older than I was, and he was so much better than I was, that I was like, I never would even think about like challenging him. But I don't know, man. Like I feel like that's the first recollection of me, like, or for myself, of like, I remember my brothers. So I'll give you the reason. My brother and sister were actually on the inside of the track running with me.
Oh, they kind of paced you a little bit, like cheering you on.
literally yelling, cheering me on.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, so that's what I remember. So like I remember they literally ran the inside of the track with me saying, "You can do it, you can do it." And so like when you have like a fan crew running
yeah,
with you, it's like, "Oh, this feels good." Like I
yeah,
want to keep doing it, right? So like I
yeah,
think that was like a positive reinforcement type of thing. So that's, I'll say that.
yeah. No, that makes sense. I mean, like obviously
Having somebody in your corner, I think,
having someone in your
is
corner
helpful.
for sure helps a lot. I mean, both. I mean, you and I before we jumped on here, we're talking about how supportive our family is of us, and I think that helps a lot to have people that are in your corner and the environment that you grow up in. You know, me and my siblings, we all played sports growing up, and we were not competitive amongst each other as much, me versus my sisters, but ourselves each are competitive. And I think that that environment that you grew up in, it laid a foundation for lifelong fitness, your interest levels.
Well, and speaking of competitiveness, let's shift gears here. Somebody I think was told, hey, if you score a certain amount of goals, then I'll take you somewhere and get you a Jamba Juice. Tell me a
Yeah,
little
yeah,
bit
yeah,
about that story.
yeah. So this is 3-on-3 soccer. So this is like the first sport I played was 3-on-3 soccer. So they
How
set
old
up a
were
field.
you?
It's probably five, like 4 or 5. It's rec league soccer. It's mixed teams. It's just kind of like everyone's wearing the same. We were like wearing green T-shirts. We were like the Green Monsters or something. I don't know the exact team name is, and you're just rotating people playing time because it's just kids getting out there and
Supposed to be
playing
just for fun.
for fun. And I was like really aggressive at soccer. Like at 3v3 soccer, I'm slide tackling, getting the ball out of there, dribbling around. There's no goalie, and
The
so you
others
kind of
aren't doing this stuff.
either they're not willing to be as grimy or just like they just didn't have that kind of like I'm gonna go get the ball
Killer
and put it in the net.
instinct. Yeah.
Yeah. And my dad had a sense for giving me some target or some goal to kind of keep me focused because it was like if all there was for me was, hey, you're going to have out of the 30 minutes playing time, you're going to have, 15 minutes and you're going to rotate through, at the end of the day, it's not about stats, but it's like, what is that I'm kind of aiming towards? Cause there was no winning and losing in that, but I mean, I was keeping track. And so he set up this target. He's like, hey, here's something you can do. If you score, what did he say? He said like 5 goals or something.
Six goals.
Six. He said six goals. I'll take you to Jamba Juice. And that's back in the day. I think it's now Booster Juice, or they got bought out by somebody. But it's a smoothie place, and I was like, love smoothies are delicious. Let's go get one.
Yeah.
So I get in the game, and I would score a goal, and I jogged by the sidelines, and I was like, Dad, that's one. Score
I
another
heard
goal.
it was more like
Two.
that's one.
I mean, sure. I mean, yeah, I'm screaming it out. So I'm like, Dad, that's 6. Yeah, that's 6. And then my coach is like, hey, Garrett, why don't you take a break? Why don't you take a rest? Because it's like,
the other kids were crying.
I don't know if they were crying or not.
That's what your mom said. Your mom was like, yeah, the other kids are like crying and like, I don't want to
Yeah.
play anymore. And Garrett's over here like, Dad, that's 5.
I mean,
Dude, I love it. I love it, dude.
I
can
don't.
only imagine.
I'm actually not like I love playing games where I'm more of an includer. I want everyone to have fun. I want it to
Now
be
you're an
competitive.
includer as you got older.
No. I
Okay.
don't know if that was not present there. I just think
Yeah.
that it's like I think there's like 2 different flavors of this. One is I'm gonna win and I don't care if nobody else is having fun. And the other one is like for me at this stage of life, even through high school, is like I love competing and I love playing the game. If it was competitive and fair and people were working hard and enjoying themselves, then it's great. I think that I don't want to, win and then like make somebody feel bad
No, yeah,
because
yeah.
because I beat them. I mean, that reminds me of another story.
Well, can I last quote and then another story. What's interesting is your mom told me a bunch of other stories, but I was like, when Garrett has a goal, I think he's going to reach it. Like it wasn't that you wanted to make the other kids feel bad. That's not, and I was obviously kind of joking about that, but it's like more like, hey, you give me a goal, I'm going to get there. And because I have other stories about that too, but that's where that's your mindset. It's not like you're not going to, you're not going to kill anyone, but like, it's like, hey, I want to do this. And
Yeah.
anyways, back to you.
Yeah. No, I think that like, yeah, that was kind of like what it was. My dad kind of recognized that you give Garrett a target, a well-formed target.
Yeah.
That's another thing that we'll talk about at the end is like in the absence of external goals, like what do you do?
Right.
So I think I grew up in a lot of environments where there's just like, sports, school, it's just like you get good grades. Air Force Academy, they have, they measure everything and they give you a target. And then once you get out into the real world, you're like, oh, this is like an infinite game, right? It's like there's no real rules, there's no real winning, losing.
Targets.
Yeah, so I've had to learn that. What I want to know about your competitive mindset a little bit, in winning at the expense of others, or maybe just kind of like, what do you do when you win? So you're like 11 or 12, maybe, or maybe Jordan was like 11 or 12. It's 4th of July. You're playing basketball with your cousins.
Oh yeah.
And you and I mean, I don't know if the format was 3-on-3. You are just smoking Jordan's team, and kind of like egging him on is what he tells me. And then at the end of the game, you guys win, and you kind of like you give him a look, or you do something to kind of like egg him on. And he threw the ball at you. Do you remember this?
Yeah. So yeah. Do you want me to?
Yeah, you pick it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're playing basketball. We're at the lake, and his team, we were winning, and I was probably being a little braggadocious, and so I was like, what's up? What's going on? And he took the ball and he threw it at me, and I ducked, and I was like, ha, like, and it goes behind me, and I was like, I'll go get it. And so I'm going to go get it. I like jog to go get it. I bend down. I stand back up. And wham! Right in the face. Like
he said he ran up on you and decked you right in the face, dropped you like a sack of potatoes.
Yeah, hit me right in the eye. Went down, and I was like, and I can't. Obviously, I probably was like crying or like, what the, like.
Yeah.
And then I think I ran after him, or I don't know.
Well, what he says is that your mom had to come over and pull you off of him.
Oh,
and she got mad because, like, she's like, what are we doing here? What's going on? And
there's a lot of people around. It's like,
and a lot of people, and both of y'all got in trouble because,
sure.
One was, Jordan sucker punching you, totally uncalled for.
Yeah.
And, maybe, you continuing the fight. That's all, dude. If you retaliate, you're always going to get in trouble. That's the thing.
For sure. But I was egging him on. Like, I definitely like, and, because we were close enough, Jordan and I were close enough in age that he could compete somewhat with me, but I was always like more mature, like,
yeah, you're a step ahead of him at that age.
Yeah, step ahead. And so I think he wanted to be able to beat me and stuff. And so, yeah, it was just, I think I have learned a little bit about like not doing that type of stuff, but also, it's when in the heat of the moment, you get a little egged on, especially if the other person's talking a little smack beforehand, right? Like,
yeah.
And Jordan
dude,
doesn't.
I have you have a kind of maybe like, not to say a track record of it, but like you have a way, I think, of kind of like that was like brother to brother.
Bringing the worst out in people.
Well, yeah, I mean, like you want to talk about senior year state finals of wrestling?
Oh, well,
do you remember this?
Yeah. Getting punched in the face again.
That wasn't you. That wasn't you bringing you brought the worst out in somebody, but that was through like just sheer determination and will.
Yeah.
The way your dad told me this great story. So, you were a very accomplished high school wrestler.
Decent. Yeah, I was pretty good.
You had multiple state placements.
Yep.
Your junior year, you took second.
I went 5th, 3rd, 2nd, then 1st.
Okay, so let's talk about just a little bit of backstory. So your junior year, you wrestled against a guy in the finals named Chris Bullins. Do you know what's special about Chris Bullins?
He was undefeated.
Yes, he has the national record, or at the time, the national record for the most consecutive wins in high school.
Yeah.
Yes.
Big match.
Big match, right? So you wrestled this guy your junior year, and I'm going to come back because that story has more to it, but you wrestled Chris Bullins. You're going up against this guy, but you're just like your dad said, you were unfazed. You're like, I'm just going to go, it's another guy, I'm going to go wrestle him.
And you were a
You know,
wrestler too, so you kind of know, and you were captain of your team. So just throwing that out there. So you kind
yeah,
of know the,
that's right. And so you wrestle this guy your junior year. He beats you. You know, he's obviously like an all time great wrestler in high school. Um, but you didn't seem phased. The next year, you wrestled a different guy in the finals. And this guy that you wrestled in the finals, which let me see if I got his name down here. Do you remember the name Ronnie?
I think it was Robbie. Robbie did it.
Robbie. Robbie. Okay, so Robbie, earlier that year, he beat Chris Bolins. So Robbie, great wrestler, beat Chris Bolins, so broke his undefeated record. That was Chris Bolins' only
Wild.
loss
Wild
in
in high
all
school.
of high school wrestling.
Yeah, pretty wild.
Chris Bolins even gained weight to wrestle this Robbie
He,
guy.
he, he got bumped up during a
He
dual
got he got
match.
bumped up in a dual match. There's a lot of strategy in wrestling,
Yeah.
dual meets and stuff because you have put best wrestler against best wrestler to kind of match up.
Hmm.
And whether or not like I'm not, that's nothing about Chris. It's just like this guy Robbie is a great wrestler, and your dad, he had some great stories about your mindset, and we'll talk about some more of those. But one of these is like he kind of just saw that this guy Robbie was like one of those fragile mindsets in wrestling that you face a lot. When he's winning, he's gonna win big, but if you can kind of get him behind, start to crumble. And your dad just said, if you can take this guy down first, he's just gonna collapse. So what does Austin do? Double leg takedown in the first round, gets this guy down. And you're leading 8-2 as time is running out. And the timer person comes out with, they have a little pool noodle. If anyone's been to high school wrestling, come out with the pool noodle, and they say 5, 4, 3. And at 1 second, Robbie, boom, clocked you in the face.
Right in the face.
Right in the face. Match is over. Your dad was a little bit upset because he's like, it's officially a 5:59 DQ.
DQ. Yeah. People
We-
like it in the face, I guess.
And he has this great memory of you, like you didn't even care. Everyone, your brother, your sister, your mom, they're holding your whole family back from rushing the mat to go like fight this kid and his family. And you're just celebrating, you're having the greatest time of your life. And they said, like there's a great picture of you with your dad. Your face is all covered in blood, and you're just like on top of the world.
For sure.
I mean, talk about like what does that feel like to kind of like go out on a state championship.
It was fun, man. It was obviously like the build up, right? Like you speaking of expectations, I wanted to be a 4-time state champion. My older brother, 3-time state champion, he broke his wrist his freshman year, or he would have had a chance at being a 4-timer. One, like probably 2 in South Carolina, 2 in North Carolina. Anyways, so I was like, I was a decent wrestler. I was a pretty good wrestler. And I was like, I want to be a 4-timer. I want to beat my older brother. That goal. And I got 5th my freshman year, and I was like heartbreaking because I was like, oh man, like I thought I was gonna do it. Like I wrestled 130 in high school, which my freshman year I looked very sickly the whole year. But anyways, so then my sophomore year I got 3rd, and then that junior year I got 2nd, and so like it was just like a sigh of relief because like it's like one of those things where you're just like, man, like I actually worked really really hard for this thing, and it panned out. It doesn't always happen because losing the year before, you're just like, man, I worked really hard. And a lot of people, this is what's crazy. It's crazy because when people are rooting for you, it's great, but it's also like I almost feel more compelled when people are rooting against me. People really wanted me to beat Chris the year before.
Yeah.
And they were like, you can do it, man. Like if anybody's going to do it, you're going to do it.
It's going to be you. Yep.
It's going to be you. And I was like, it's a lot of pressure, but I was also like, man, it would be so cool if I did it. Like,
Yeah.
anyways.
How are you thinking? I want to ask you some more about the Chris Bullins thing, but yeah, tell me what you were thinking.
Well, and it's just like, so then the next year when this guy beat Chris, it was like, oh, like, and obviously Chris had bumped up. I'm not like taking that away from Robbie, but like, it was like one of those things where it's like almost like redeeming because it's like the guy, I can beat this guy and he beat Chris.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a cool like segue. So anyways,
That's right.
it was like a
absolutely.
cool feeling.
Yeah, man. No, definitely like, but through all these wrestling stories, it's like, wrestling is a fantastic sport. My wrestling coach in high school.
You were
I wrestled.
Yep. Your mom said that.
From 5th grade all the way through high school. My wrestling coach, he, collegiate wrestler at Oregon State, and what he would say is like, he would continuously remind us of, it was either his quote or he just borrowed it from Cale Sanderson, or it's, I'm just misattributing it to somebody, but it's like, once you wrestle, everything in life is easy.
It's so true though.
Well, because it's like, it's just you and this other person, so you can't hide on the mat. You can't hide. There is going to be a result one way or the other, right? They don't award ties. And it is just, and it's like, it's physical preparation. It's crazy hard, and it's combative. It's very physical. And then at the end of the day, it's a mindset thing. Yes, all the time. I really, really loved how wrestling impacted me, helped me grow up. And I think it seems like maybe from your upbringing, or, like through the experience of these sports, you develop kind of that really strong mindset to be able to go out and win. You talk about the expectations thing. I'm curious, like, kind of, there's a story your dad told me. It's after your junior year, you wrestle against Chris Bowens in the final. There's all these expectations for you. You lose. And then everyone gets on the bus to go back home. Your dad's like, it's a really cold winter day. Boss gets home. He's dejected. The family's kind of like, oh man, like, oof, like, we really thought that Austin was going to do it. Like, they're kind of feeling demoralized. You go inside, come downstairs, like 20 minutes later, you got like winter clothes on and a backpack with a baseball bat. And your dad's like, where are you going? He's like, yeah, I called the baseball coach. I'm going to go to the batting cages. And you were like, just next sport. There's actually nothing that you were thinking about or really was in. I'm curious to hear like your mindset. How do you have that mindset to be able to kind of like move on that quickly to kind of, your dad brought up this concept, is like FIDO.
Mm-hmm. Forget it and drive on.
Forget it, drive on.
Yeah. So I think for me, you don't get used to losing, but like I had lost to the champion each year. I think, except my freshman year. My freshman year, the guy got second, but I'd lost to the champion each year. And I was just like, gosh, at least I vied for the championship. And like, I think that's the other part about, and it's just like the life kind of analogy is like, there's so many times when you think something's going to happen and it doesn't happen in exactly the way you want it to happen. And you're just going to be like, all right, what's the next thing? I need to, because I think psychologically for me, I was just like, I need to go do something. Like, I need to go do something else, because I don't want to just keep thinking about this thing. And I want to be the best baseball player I can be, right? Like I can't do anything about what just happened. And the more I dwell on that, the more I'm just going to feel sorry for myself. And I'm going to come back again next year. I'll have another shot and blah, blah, blah. Like, so it's hard to say, because I think there was so many instances in my life where I had been close to doing something and I almost there and then didn't get it, almost there and didn't get it. And so I don't know, because what's interesting is I think about almost like Graham Weaver, where he quit wrestling his freshman year and never wrestled again. And then he said, I wish I would have kept wrestling. That was like one of the biggest mistakes of my life. And so like, I will say, like, I think my parents were like, they didn't say, man, like they never like dwelled on it either. They like, you did your best. Like, that's awesome. And they would hug me and be like,
that's right.
And so I think that gave me comfort of like, hey man, you did your best. Like, no one got down on you, and they didn't dwell on it. So it was nice, because as a young 17-year-old, like you were very, very much taking in the things that people are saying to you. And so if they're dwelling on it, then and don't get me wrong, like, I'm sure they were sad, but like,
no, I think they like privately sad. I think that's one of the things your dad was sharing, is like, he was just kind of wondering like, well, what is Austin going to do?
Yeah.
And you talk about Graham Weaver, that I wonder what would have happened to you if you had won state your freshman year.
Yeah.
Would that have been good or bad for you in your life?
Right.
Maybe good for you in your wrestling career. You like double down on that, then sophomore year you come in and, you win, you beat that person, you make it to the finals, you beat whoever that person would ended up beating, versus kind of like that fragile, if you haven't experienced. Reminds me of a very short story from my past. Is I started to train, barbell, lifts pretty seriously. I started working out like off-season football training since I was like 5th grade. So it was like, a couple mornings every week, 6 a.m. at the high school with a trainer and a couple guys that were like my age or a little older lifting. So I have this, history of lifting, but it was more like sports training.
Mm-hmm.
And after I graduated college, I was like, okay, I have to find something to keep me motivated going forward. And so I started following like starting strength and, like 5x5 and all these other ones that are basically like, hey, just progressive overload, put some weight on the bar, do 5 sets of 5. The next time that you come train, add a 2.5, and you just go up from there. And I'd been doing this for a few months, and I found myself in Qatar on deployment in a sweaty gym on base at Al Udeid, and I hadn't failed yet. I hadn't failed to lift. And so I'm in these cages with like the like the full cage, so like you could just drop it and set it down. But I had literally in my life never failed a squat. So I was like getting in my head about like, oh, I don't know, like this is getting really heavy. Like the RPE of these sets are like 10.5. And I'm like grinding every rep. And I was like so caught up in like, what happens if I fail? And I remember there's one morning I had to wake up super early to get to the gym in Al Udeid before my shift started at the Air Operations Center. And I had maybe like, I don't know, it was like 425 on the bar, whatever it was. And I was doing 5 sets of 5. And the second set, third rep, I go down just, and it's not moving. And I was like, I'm going to like dump it. And then I just kind of like did the thing where you just kind of set it down forward and like crawled out. And I was like, oh, that wasn't so bad.
First time. Wow.
And I know that sounds kind of silly, but like I was getting in my head about like, I was going to get injured or like, what does this mean? And it's really like, oh, well, maybe the progressive overload, like that phase actually is over. And that's cool because now I can move on to more like intermediate style training. And it just like was a weight off my back because I actually hadn't experienced what it was like. The idea of that failure was way worse than the actual failure itself. And I know that's just in a training context or something.
No, but that's good. And I think that's so important because we always think about how the failure is going to be like, we build up that failure. And then once it happens, it's like, oh, that wasn't that bad. But it's interesting because I'm wondering, I feel like you didn't fail that much growing up. I feel like in the stories that I heard from your parents. And so that's where it's an interesting story that your mom said that your dad had a conversation with you freshman year, and maybe it was a senior year. It was senior year, but Candace even said like you had it in your mind that you were going to go to the Air Force Academy. One, I don't even know. Do you remember why you chose? And you probably do. So I want to hear about that. Like why it was in your head you want to go to Air Force Academy. And then two, I'll ask the next question after that when you tell them why did you want to go to Air Force Academy and how did you know that was like I was going to do that?
Oh gosh. So I kind of lucked out that was the right decision for me, or at least I made it the right decision after I found out. You made
it the right decision.
Yeah. So
once it was in your sights.
Yeah, and I think that's helpful. Is like the freedom of no constraints is actually paralyzing. You actually have to have some constraints in order to move forward. Mm-hmm. For me, it was sophomore year of high school. My dad said, hey, it's time to start thinking about colleges. He handed me a Forbes 100 magazine, Forbes tops 100 undergraduate programs. Mm-hmm. And on the cover was West Point. They picked West Point as number 1, and they had a little like write-up on each school. And they were like, like a blurb, like a half page or something, but they did like a multi-page spread on West Point, Air Force Academy, and Annapolis because they put West Point number 1. So that explained to everyone, like, what is this thing? Why do we put it over these Ivy League schools? What is it? Air Force was on there as like number 7, Navy, was like 14. And I was looking through that and I saw that at the Air Force Academy, you go there and you could be a fighter pilot. And I just kind of like, within, I don't know, however long, I was like, yeah, that sounds good. I want to go to the Air Force Academy. Now, what I didn't realize at the time is that one of the things I was looking at is cost of tuition, and Air Force, like the other service academies, fully paid for. If you get in, it's just paid for. And for me, growing up, my oldest sister, she was very talented as a sprinter, so she ended up getting a scholarship, academic plus athletic scholarships. My middle sister is a very talented musician. And so she got school paid for where she went to in part because of that, and academic scholarships. And it kind of was like the message is like, you have to find some way to pay for school. Like I remember back in my head, like the whole FAFSA thing with my oldest sister was kind of, it's just like this financial burden. And for me, it was like, hey, I can just solve this, right? I wasn't as good athletically, I think, to get like a scholarship to like a D1 university. And I was thinking about good engineering schools. I'm just thinking about like, hey, my brain is what's going to take me forward. So it's not going to be my body. I tried out for the Air Force Academy football team. They didn't pick me up, asked me to come back as a walk on. And I said no, because I went and played rugby, and best decision of my life to not do that. And so I'll come back to the moment in time as I picked the Air Force Academy because it's going to be paid for, basically. I didn't really know that in the back of my head. I didn't know how to articulate that, but I was like, I'm going to go do this thing.
Wow.
My dad was like, are you sure? And I'm like, yeah, I'm sure. And he's like, he researches it more, and he's like, there's a service commitment. You have to serve after you go to school. Are you sure? I'm like, yeah. And he kept doing like more research and whatnot. And at some point he was like, are you locked in because I've been telling other people and you really haven't like explored around? And I was like, no, I think like I'm just picking this thing. And I went and experienced the Air Force Academy during the summer seminar, which is, you know, the summer before your senior year, you can go out and like pretend to be cadet for a couple weeks or a week.
Yeah.
And when we were there, I was like, oh, I actually love this environment. I love the you know, getting yelled at or whatever. I don't know, like boot camp, military stuff. Like it was fun.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, I think this is the right decision for me. I actually didn't apply to any other schools.
Which is also a funny story. I love that. Keep going.
Which like I applied only to the Air Force Academy. This is like in my junior year. And my dad was like, well, you need a backup plan. And I'm like, okay. So I applied for ROTC scholarship, and I you know, interviewed with the University of Portland rep that said, hey, you know, they basically interview you, and that's like part of your application for whatever you're going to get. And they said, hey, you know, if you, whatever you get in terms of scholarship, we'll cover the rest if you want to come here. So I never applied to University of Portland, but kind of like that or like some other ROTC program maybe was an option. At that point, like at the end of the interview, when he told me that, I was like, yeah, I already got accepted to the Air Force Academy. I just started this process because like my dad said that I needed to. And I know that sounds like I kind of have lived my life where it's like I picked a thing and then it kind of just works out, which is not a, I feel super fortunate. It's not a great thing, actually.
Well, it's interesting because there was one quote that I was thinking of too, because your mom was like, when your dad asked Garrett, like, how are you so confident? And do you remember what you said? Okay. He said that you were like, Dad, everything's gonna be fine. You just gotta have faith. Like
that was probably that teenage me just being like, get off my back.
But it was just probably just being funny. But your mom thought that was like, I'm sure they both thought it was like, okay, yeah, I'll just have faith. Like, and I know religion is a big part of your lives, but like you're like, Dad, it's okay. You just got like, as long as I do everything and you have faith, we'll be fine.
Yeah. I think for me, it was also a little bit of timing and sequencing that like the ROTC thing, like if the Air Force Academy thing had fallen through with the time frame at which you apply, I could have like applied to state schools
other
or
places.
Sure. And I'm not saying that's like the right way of going through life, but I mean, I did that again when I was applying to MBA programs. Like Molly, my wife, was like, if we're going to go to a 2-year program after leaving the military, I'm going to choose like the geographic location. Like I don't want to live in California. I don't want to be in Chicago. I don't want to be in Philadelphia, New York. So she's like, you can apply to schools in Boston and you can apply to Duke.
Did you get into both of those?
Okay, so I applied to MIT and HBS and Duke Fuqua. I got into MIT and HBS, and then I got waitlisted at Fuqua. That's their yield management in action, right? They're the only program that asked me, like, did you apply to other programs? And I told them. And so I think for them, it's like, okay, this guy looks like a pretty good candidate. If he gets accepted by those schools, we don't waste an offer on him. If he doesn't,
their bets.
He'll come back to us. All these programs play yield management because if you have an offer that's rejected, that goes into this like denominator, not numerator thing. And anyways.
See, so to build off of that, Garrett, this is why it makes me understand you a little more. I feel like from my perspective, because I feel like in the past, I have said like, Garrett, let's do this, or let's try this. Like, let's try this thing. And the reason why it makes me think of that is because I'm like, oh, if Garrett is given a goal, like score 6 goals or run around the house 50 times. Or, hey, I want to live in these places, so I need you to get into one of these, in a school in there. If Garrett is given constraints, he's going to make it happen. That's what I've come to find out. So I'm like, Garrett, we need to make this podcast millions of users.
You give me the constraints, yeah.
Or millions of viewers.
Yeah.
So like, it's interesting because I'm like, oh my gosh. And maybe in your head, I don't know, you tell me, but I'm like, maybe in Garrett's head, he's like, if I'm going to do something, more than likely, I'm going to find a way to make it happen. So I'm going to have to choose wisely because it's going to take a lot of my effort to make this happen. Tell me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, that's true. I don't have the sense that like I'm going to succeed no matter what. Like, I don't have like unbridled confidence in myself. I think more where that mindset comes in is because I can do so many things, I need to choose wisely what I go towards. Like, that doesn't help. Just because I could do different things doesn't mean that it helps me actually choose, and it's instructive. And so I've actually been paralyzed a lot in my life, like kind of the HBS lifestyle and trying to figure out what career path to go on from there. It was actually really, really hard because I hadn't had a circumstance in which I had to create my own external constraints.
Right. And that's the tough part is creating those constraints. It's like, because all through life, before you go to the academy, all these things, you're like, hey, these things
there's a game, there's rules. It's like, hey, if you want to get in the best school, you just get good grades and you do that. And so I'm very blessed with talents and abilities, a very supportive family, lots of luck on my side, right? You know, like opportunities that came my way. I will say an example where this didn't work out is like going through HBS. You know, everyone has this sense that people out there are just hiring veterans. I think maybe it's like the tides are shifting a little bit, or at least like the sources that I listen to where people are realizing, like people say we support veterans, we hire veterans, but realistically nobody really wants to train anyone, and nobody really wants to like do the mental gymnastics to be like, well, why should I take a risk on it? Now, I do think that there are people that can kind of see the abstract value of somebody who's a doer in one context and say, okay, you can come over and be a doer in this context. I applied to dozens of internships, zeroed out, and I got one call from a friend of mine from high school, Ben, who said, hey, I'm working on this thing with a friend of mine. It's, mental performance training with athletes using AI. Like, you got to get involved in this.
Yeah.
And that's what I ended up doing for the summer. And so like my opportunity kind of came to me, which I think is either providence or just fortune and luck. Mm-hmm. The same way in the job hunt, I'm throwing my name out there. I'm applying, went through to the final round for 5 different places and got turned down every single time.
Okay.
Even one that like in the local area here in Raleigh where I moved, it's an HBS founder, veteran. On his team, there are multiple HBS people that are veterans. I've been talking to them for months. It's kind of like everyone is like, oh, you're moving to Raleigh, you should talk to this company. And they end up going a different direction with somebody that they hired. Like I made it to the final round. They brought me out here. I interviewed. And I don't know if it was me internal, like how I presented myself, whatever. I don't know. I actually don't know. And I'm so glad that it didn't work out. Like I texted this to you. It's like this idea, this adage, like when God gives me what I ask for, I thank him. And when God doesn't give me what I ask for, I thank him 10 times. And if I had gotten internships or jobs that I had wanted or had been tracking to go get, I don't know where I would be right now. Maybe like I would make the right decision, but I'm so grateful for the opportunity that I have now that kind of like came in through, a group chat that's just for the veterans at HBS, and this opportunity popped up and I went and pursued it. And, my boss and I really gelled, and he's like, I think you're the right fit. And it was just like, when things are right, it was very easy. And I think that maybe earlier on in life, I either chose well, and that's why like I found the ease where I didn't have to kind of go search around. But in, the post Air Force phase, I had a really hard time choosing well, or at least like the fits and how I prepared. And so I actually did face quite a bit of like existential crisis thinking.
And how did that feel? Like, yeah. How did that feel? Like, how did you work through it? I know it ended up like working out, but like,
yeah,
was it hard for you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's a little bit of difficulty. Like I saw some of my, what I consider my peers, like either other veterans or people at HBS getting these opportunities with internships or kind of like getting picked up for jobs. And I was like, man, like what's wrong with me? 2025, and I think the numbers are similar in 2026, a third of the class at HBS graduated without a job. What that means is like people trying to start a startup or they're applying for just-in-time hiring, they just hadn't locked us down something yet. And I was like, okay, like I know that's the case, but surely not me, right? Surely not me. I will have a job by the time I graduate. And as it got closer, I was like, oh, yes, that is me. And over the course of my time in grad school, it was like up and down of like confidence. Like, no, I know that I'm gonna have an opportunity that will come to me. It will work out in the end. But then like doing it live, you're like, what is wrong with me? Why did I interview this? I'm like applying to stuff that probably isn't well aligned to me because I'm like freaking out thinking that nothing's going to work out.
Right.
And so I think it's really easy to look back and be like, oh, of course, this is the way it was going to work out. And that's a little bit of like human bias, like the hindsight bias.
Well, connecting the dots backwards always makes sense, as they say, right?
That's right. But looking forward, it's really hard to make steps forward. And I'm learning how to kind of make those steps forward and just, hey, I'll put myself out there and try versus the evaluate my options and pick the one right option right off the bat. And so that was pretty instructive for me. Just kind of like, oh, that's just like more real life is you're going to throw your name out there and it's not going to get picked up and, no skin off my back. It's fine. I'm glad they probably found a better fit at these other companies and I'm happy for that. I'm happy for my fit now.
And so there's so many like little sub lessons within the stories you just told, right? I think one, you have to put yourself out there in order to see if it's going to happen. You have to try to lift the weight to see if you're going to do it sometimes, and sometimes you're going to fail. And I think that is super important. And you can't like founders and people just say all the time, like I interviewed for 100 jobs, right? Like, and none of them want me to come work for them. It's just about like, you never really, really know when one thing's going to hit. So you have to say, okay, let me tweak this, tweak that, and try it again next time. Might not work. Tweak this, tweak that, try it again next time. And change your approach. And then what's funny to me with how you got this job is that it was just an opportunity that came up and you said, you know what, let me just take a flyer. Let me see what it's about.
That's
and
exactly
being
what
open.
it was.
I think we put ourselves in a box sometimes, whereas it's good. Like, hey, you have this vision. You're like, I want to work at this job. But as you get older, I think when you feel like yourself, like you don't know exactly what to do, kind of just taking opportunities as they present themselves and just being like, you know what, let me just try this.
Yeah. That reminds me, there's this concept from a class called Building and Sustaining Successful Enterprise. So there's a famous HBS professor who's since passed named Clay Christensen, and he wrote about deliberate versus emergent strategy. And so it's kind of this like idea that applies across business. He wrote a book called How Will You Measure Your Life, which is a very good book. He takes these concepts and he talks about the business case, and then he says, here's how you can apply it in your life. And kind of his conclusion, or at least my takeaway from it, is people who are all deliberate strategy are going to suffer, right? Because it's like, if you're just trying to, like, it's great to have determination, force through and say, this is the way, and just like force it through. That kind of presupposes that you know the right way forward. That's like a straw man to say, you're not going to change your strategy at all. But if I had said, I am going to go do entrepreneurship through acquisition, that was my idea coming into HBS. I'm going to go, raise some capital and go buy a small business and run that. If I had just stuck to that and not listened to any of the signals or the signs about like, is this the right fit for me? Is this the right market? Is this good for my family? I would be pretty miserable because I probably would try to force that through. And then, maybe I succeed at doing it, but then it's like at what cost? The other side of it is the emergent strategy. Well, okay, I won't have any plan. I'm just going to be opportunistic. Well, you actually create more opportunities by action. So the recommendation from the book is have a deliberate strategy and act on it and remain open to emergent strategies and be willing to jump off. That is so hard to do.
It's very hard
in action. And, it's not perfect. And it's not saying like, you can optimize and solve it. But it's like, I have to hold both. And in my life, I kind of find myself switching between just, hey, this is my path and this is what I want to go on, and oh, I'll just be opportunistic, and it's actually kind of both.
And that is the lesson, is that I think it's important to know you can have a deliberate strategy and try the emergent strategy as well. And it doesn't mean you're going to make the perfect choice all the time, but you have these core principles in your life. Just like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get signal. I'm going to see if it's the right move the next time, and I'm going to keep going. And so I think a lot of times people feel like in their early 20s these days, maybe even, late 20s, early 30s, like the signal I'm getting from people is that they need to feel like they have it figured out, and it causes a lot of anxiety, and that is normal. To have that anxiety is normal. Obviously, you don't want it to be debilitating or something that is so bad that it makes you like ultra anxious. But having that anxiety is normal. And then, like you said, like you have to be willing to try things that may be outside of your scope of something you didn't even know. That's where I go to. I thought I was going to be working at Chadwick for one football season. I literally, I took my signal of my friends from the Air Force Academy were coaching at Chadwick. They asked if I could help. I was like, well, I'm transitioning out. Let me just try this. And by no means did I have the forethought of saying, oh, I'm going to be running a wellness program there, 4 years from now, 3 years from now. But it was a 3-month commitment, right? Like a 3-month thing where I was like, oh, I'll help out football season, and then I'll be, I'll probably never see this place again. That's the beauty of it, is like if it's something where you can just dip your toes in and say, I want to try this, especially early on, and then start to figure out like, hey, this is what I'm really good at, and that doesn't mean you're never going to come up with times in your life where you feel so anxious that you don't know what the next move, but always like feel like I can have a plan, but be, water, as they say, right? That's where I was kind of going with this. I feel like I hear so often that people just don't know what to do and they're so anxious about the future. That's where it's hard.
Yeah, no, the big takeaways that I have from this are two things. One is, in the back of my mind, I had to keep reminding myself, there's this quote at the end of the book Range, by I think David Epstein is the author, is people think that with the expert, hypothesis that you got to have 10,000 hours in fact of practice to become great. And it's like, yes, that's true, but that's presupposing that you found a good fit. So being willing to explore to find good fit and then digging in is actually more important. And the message that he says is you're not behind. And what I take from that is, okay, well, really, these peers that I saw, well, they're not my peers. They don't have my life constraints. Like I'm actually not even compared. I can only make decisions for me going forward. And that's not constructive to kind of like say, why am I not doing blank? Well, I would probably never do blank. I might not have the opportunity. I might not get selected to do that. And then the other thing is, you talk about that anxiety. When I was feeling anxious, I remembered this saying that my friend Tom from Ohio, when I was back in Ohio, he gave to me. He said, action defeats anxiety. So it's not like the feeling's going to go away forever, but if you're feeling anxious, making a constructive step forward can actually like quiet the thoughts. It's like the idea of like putting the weight on the bar and just trying it. Or, hey, I actually don't know what to do. This seems so big. It's like, well, what's one small thing that I can do to move in that direction and get the forward momentum and then start to pick up some signal and make decisions from there.
So I love that outlook. Action defeats anxiety. Is that what you said? I love that. It definitely resonates with me just because I try to take that to heart as well. The one thing I had it in my head and then I lost it when I was thinking about that. But I was going to say, the last thing I kind of want to end on here is like, Garrett and I are very fortunate to have parents that supported us and brothers and sisters that, had our back and like, patted and wanted us to do well. And I think that's important. And the reason why I bring that up is because if there's somebody out there, or if you're listening to this and you don't feel like you have a good support system, I love podcasts and books because there have been times in my life where I feel like I'm kind of an outsider and I'm trying to find that path. And podcasts and books allow you to kind of hear people that maybe have that same type of drive you have, and it surrounds yourself with that positive self-talk, because you need that to help you, because there are so many people out there that have negative people in their lives. And that's why maybe you feel like you can't do the thing you're doing, or life sucks or something like that. And I know the world's not perfect, but trying to surround yourself with positive self-talk, positive people, and people that are going to help you get where you want to be is also important. Because that's when I talk to Garrett's mom and sister, it's just so apparent that we grew up in environments that cultivated hard work and, honesty and like that type of stuff. And so we are very fortunate to be able to have that environment to grow up in and do that. So I just wanted to give that shout out as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, I remember you talked about like your brother Jordan shared like, hey, we always knew that Austin was going to be successful. Austin was going to win at whatever he was going to do. We just didn't know kind of like what that was. And I think, yeah, it speaks volumes when you kind of grow up with that, like how that, informs and influences your life. And then, if anywhere that I've been, I realize that the people that are bringing me along to where I'm headed is like, that's where I get the most energy from, and kind of surrounding myself with those people that are kind of like supportive of the direction that I'm going in. So I'm also fortunate that I married a great partner. Same for you as well, that I know that that's super critical life decision, that person is also kind of like headed in the same direction, or at least like, supportive of the direction that you're going in.
For sure. And dude, we didn't even get into G Money and Londango, which I'm a little upset about.
Yeah, we could do the outtakes, all the stories that
dude, so many good stories. That I will wrap this up on this one, but I think everybody should talk to people's parents and then tell the stories. That would be a good
I think
podcast.
It's great. You should talk to your friends' parents and siblings.
Friends' parents.
Learn about it. Because I was like, I'd known Austin for a while, but I'd known you since met you in 2011, 2012.
Mm-hmm.
But you probably did.
Your freshman year.
I was a freshman, yeah. Like you and I probably crossed paths just a little bit. But then like got to know each other very well when we were playing Air Force rugby together out in active duty. But that's only been for like 13 years, 15 years?
Yeah. And it's been like our paths have crossed a few times, which is interesting, because I was telling your mom, like when you were at AFIT, I was out there for training for 2 weeks one time. We like trained together and then hung out a little bit. Then you were at Shaw, there were
right.
little times here and there. And then we played Air Force rugby. So
yeah, but that's not somebody's full life, So finding out all the background story is really cool. It's been cool.
Yeah, I agree. And you get to hear some the funny stories I love, because I wanted to, there were so many other ones we need to talk about too. Sasquatch and Jason.
Oh, that's a good one.
I wanted to talk about that one. That was just a funny one. But also this is the last one I'll say is Garrett has always, I've seen Garrett always is like taking care of others on his team or just people in general. Your sister Candace was like, oh yeah, before he went off to the Air Force Academy, we were on our way to youth group or something like that, and you were in the car with her, and you were like, hey, if you ever need anything, you can always reach out to me, right? And the other story, your mom said they just got you a brand new glove, and I can't remember, I think it was football or something, or baseball. I don't they said gloves, so I was thinking baseball, but I was like, I think it might be football. And she was like, where are Garrett's gloves? And some kid on the sideline had your gloves on, that you gave to somebody else. And then also at the Air Force Academy and in Air Force rugby, I've always seen Garrett taking care of the group and making sure, being a steward of the group and making sure the younger people and just people in general are being taken care of. Yeah. And I thought that was a really cool, something that you embody. And I'm just like, man, I remember seeing that. I feel like even as a freshman and I was a senior at the academy, I was like, oh, this guy, he thinks he has a higher level of thinking. He's not just having a good time. He's trying to help people.
That's right.
And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. Well, don't think
He
that
is.
you're going to get out of here without a glazing as well. One thing that I just from your life, it makes so much sense is like, Austin, you're incredibly disciplined, especially with like diet and stuff. And so Jordan was telling me like Air Force Academy, people were just dogging on you, like, oh, Ollis is going to have his 12 almonds, and you know, and then but the thing is you were like super genuine and like really, really values driven about like this is the way that I'm going to live my life, but never like preachy to other people, never like this is what you should be doing, and kind of like, hey, I'm doing this better than you. And by sticking to your principles and allowing other people to just be around you, it actually gave those people, those friends, the space to come back around, years later and be like, hey, since I've, left school, my training, I had kids, like, hey, you've always been kind of disciplined. You're still in shape, like, kind of like, what do I do? And it's like, not that that should be like vindication, like, ha, I was right, but it was like, you were very principles driven, and you never made other people feel like they were doing something wrong. If they asked for help, you were there to help them. And you were also very genuine. Jordan was like, nobody hates Austin. Everyone loves Austin. You spend time with Austin, you're going to enjoy time around him, because it genuinely is a pleasure to like spend time with you and enjoy. That's like one of the benefits of like, this is why we do this, is like it's nice to talk with you. And the only time that people just had like manufactured beef with you, like it was always over like a girl, like some girl liked you, and then that guy was like, like my ex likes Austin, so now I'm gonna have beef with Austin. But like realistically, like there's I can't think of another person who is like so driven, optimistic, and like locked in all the time. It's kind of incredible.
Dude, Air Pound, you're the man. Dude, this is awesome. Yeah, love doing these with you. I appreciate all the kind words, man. And yeah, let's just keep doing this, and we'll come up with. This was a long drawn out stories. I love these stories, and we'll chop it up a little bit. But that's all I got. You got anything else, Garrett?
That's it.
That's the pod.